When we spoke before, I was so struck by the way that you experience dream time, not as something passive, but as something that you're actively learning from and participating in. So, to begin, would you share a little bit about your relationship with dreams? What dream time has been for you, kind of like the arc through your life.
When you dream, a lot of people don't just have one big dream in the night. There's multiple fragmentation of dreams, and you bounce around. And I experienced that in quite vivid forms. My dreams have always been graphically and amazing, but also a lot of depth in terms of what I'm experiencing. But I never really looked at them from the perspective that I do now, with an understanding that those are actually my consciousness playing out opportunities for me to engage with that, my consciousness and awareness, that gives me the ability to really be self-aware of what my dreams are telling me.
When did you first realize that your dreams were different from just having a dream and okay, I had a nice dream and I woke up from it? When did you realize that, like, this transition that you're talking about, it sounds like age was a factor, but was there other things that came in that sort of were the tipping point?
Yeah, I think in generally in life, when you become introspective and you start looking at yourself, in which I did, after my consciousness reached a place where I was truly opening the door for new ideas and new understanding, both on a spiritual basis as well as a personal development basis.
Welcome back to the Healing You Method podcast. I'm Gloria Lightbecker, and I'm here with my dear friend and co-host, Gail Donohue.
Hello, everyone. We're so grateful you're here with us today. This episode is going to take us into a really fascinating and layered conversation about dreams, consciousness, healing, and the ways our inner world may be speaking to us while we sleep.
Yes, and today we are welcoming back Tim Fraser for a conversation called When Dreams Become Medicine: Soul Messages, Symbolism, and Sovereign Choice. Tim brings such a unique perspective because he has spent years paying close attention to his dream life, not just as random images or stories, but as a field of awareness, healing, and conscious choice. In a previous conversation, Tim shared with me that his dreams, they're often more vivid than like a Hollywood movie. And he described how in dream time, he can sometimes become aware that he's dreaming, and he can replay the dream and even move from being the actor in the dream to becoming the director of the dream. And that opened such an interesting doorway for us to step in to explore together.
Yeah, how cool is that, eh? Change how you are acting in the dream and become the director of the dream. And what I love about this topic is that dreams can meet us on so many levels. They can be symbolic, they can be emotional, for sure. I know that they've woken me up lots of times. They can be archetypal, they can be spiritual, and sometimes they help us see what we haven't yet been able to see in our waking life.
Yeah, exactly. And from my own experience, I often feel that dreams can be like visitations from the soul. They invite us to slow down, to wonder, to feel, and to ask, what is this showing me? What's my body telling me? And what is my soul inviting me to know? So today, we're not here to tell anyone what their dreams mean. And what we are here to do is to open a conversation around how dreams can become medicine when we meet them with curiosity, presence, discernment, and sovereignty.
So, Tim, welcome to be here with us. We're so glad to have you with us here again.
Lovely to be with you too. You are amazing hosts, and great conversations come from the depth of the questions you guys ask. So happy to be here.
Well, Tim, I'm really delighted that we get to continue this conversation with you.
That's great.
When we spoke before, I was so struck by the way that you experience dream time, not as something passive, but as something that you're actively learning from and participating in. So, to begin, would you share a little bit about your relationship with dreams? What dream time has been for you, kind of like the arc through your life.
Like most people, you think dreams are your nighttime Hollywood opportunity. You just experience things that just show up and they mean nothing other than it's entertainment. And
Mm,
and quite frankly, I've lived that life. I've lived that life of having dreams that just are entertainment, and they're obviously when you dream, a lot of people don't just have one big dream in the night. There's multiple fragmentation of dreams, and you bounce around, and I experience that in quite vivid forms. My dreams have always been um, graphically and amazing, but also a lot of depth in terms of what I'm experiencing. But I never really looked at them from the perspective that I do now, with an understanding that those are actually my consciousness playing out opportunities for me to engage with that my consciousness and awareness that gives me the ability to really be self-aware of what my dreams are telling me. And that
mm,
became evident. I think there's been a gradual shift in my consciousness as I have evolved as a human, and my consciousness is elevated to a point where I see things with a more mature lens, not the 17-year-old who has
yeah.
different kind of dreams, as we know, and and moving to a more mature understanding of being reflective on those messages. Now, I didn't
Mm.
know that there were messages
Well,
to start with.
yeah, and so Tim, I'm interested because you talked about young 17-year-old and then older and having realizing that these are more messages in your consciousness, unconsciousness, subconsciousness speaking to you. So when did you first realize that your dreams were different from just having a dream and okay, I had a nice dream and I woke up from it? When did you realize that like this transition that you're talking about, it sounds like age was a factor, but was there other things that came in that sort of were the tipping point for
Yeah,
you?
I think in generally in life, when you become introspective and you start looking at yourself, in which I did, after my consciousness reached a place where I was truly opening the door for new ideas and new understanding, both on a spiritual basis as well as a personal development basis. I've always been a personal development expansion person. I've been doing what the classic PMA, positive mental attitudes, things Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, and all that. I've always been doing that for evolving my conscious soul, but I hadn't been doing that to evolve my subconscious soul.
Mm,
And for me, that pivoted when I started opening books and started reading things. My very first book that opened my door to understanding that there's another world out there, and then that other world is not outside, it's inner, and that brought me awareness that
mm,
dreams are a part of that.
mm,
So it was, so that's to me. I think when I shifted my conscious awareness that I want to learn more and be
mhm.
Mm.
more open to what those things mean, I realized these messages are just teaching lessons.
One of the things that you shared that really stayed with me was the idea that when you're in a dream, you can sometimes become aware that you are aware, which is now you're talking about awareness and consciousness. And so this feels like a very important distinction. I want to hold the fact, too, that many of our listeners may not have a lot of exposure to this, and others may have quite a bit. But I
Mm-hmm.
do want to hold that with care. Can you talk about what happens when awareness enters the dream for you?
Yeah, I've come up with a mechanism to help me rationalize what I was experiencing. And I think I shared this on the last private call that we had. Um, I think we all know the word lucid dreaming. People know the word, they don't always know what it looks like. And once again, when you're in a dream state and you sort of coming out of it a little bit, if you look at the science behind this, when you're really deep sleep, you're in gamma state. your all your senses and all that stuff shuts down. So brain waves wise, if you look at the gamma, theta, beta and alpha, if you really look at that, when we go into a deep REM sleep and you look at it from, you have apps on your phones and you can look at that. You can see how long were you down in those really deep states. They're not very long. You're really down at the gamma state for a deep REM sleep, and that's scientifically, you could apply that to how your eye movements work, and somebody looking at you goes, oh yeah, he's really in deep sleep. When you're in that state, you come out of it, out of that deep sleep, and you go into the theta state. Theta state has been proven by many medical and not medical, but neurological research and all that, that's really where you are in that in between states of deep sleep and not quite awake. And theta state is where your highest resolution of consciousness, and you become aware in this field of in between awake and asleep. I have been scientifically driven. I work in technology, and I've always been the science guy and my thinking in logical ways. So anything I say that seems like it's esoteric and maybe in spiritual in nature, understand I didn't come from there. I came from the place where a lot of your listeners might be, which is, hey, science and math, and if it doesn't fit inside the box, it doesn't fit. I opened the possibility that there's other things, so that created my awareness. Then I started becoming aware that that state, that theta state, is actually a part of the psionics regiment. So if you look at how most people who do remote viewing and also the deep advanced stuff, which the government also does, you're working in the theta state. So I do that naturally when I become aware that I'm coming out of a dream. And I don't know how you can. I can't say if you do X, Y, and Z, you're going to be in that state. You just got to be aware that
Mm.
you are coming out of a dream. Sometimes it's a transition to the next dream, and we go up and we come back down in terms of the brain waves. So as you're coming out, if you hold yourself in that state, then that allows you to then look at your dream, look at
Yeah,
what you're
so
dreaming
one
in
thing
a different
I
way.
yeah, I'd like you to speak from your experience rather than because there's a difference in the way that I have experienced listening to someone. When you can share from your experience, people can resonate with that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring the science in play because a lot of people need it. I'm happy to jump into my experiences. So what I've experienced in very specific, what I experience is when I'm in that state, that theta state, I become aware that this is a dream
Hmm.
and I'm dreaming. And when you're aware that you're dreaming, then you have to ask the question, why am I dreaming? And you can ask that question if you become an observer of your dream. And I take
And
the
can I sort of, I wanted to interrupt at this part because I'm wondering, does it feel different? Like, is there anything that you have noticed to feel in your body that, oh, I'm aware that I'm watching what I'm doing here now. Like that's what I'm sort of like, ooh, what's that nuance that people
I
might
wish
be?
I wish I had a playbook other than it's an experience that you nurture. So the feelings are you become aware that this is a dream. You wake up and you go, oh, this is really bad. I had a bad dream. But instead of just waking up out of the dream, what I've learned to do is go back into it and
Mm,
re-engage that dream. That's the
Mm.
that's the that's the process I go through. I don't have any particular feelings other than awareness. And the awareness
mm,
is I'm dreaming.
Okay.
And then classic thing is you wake up and you go through these transition states, and I do as well. And oftentimes sometimes you biologically you got to get up and go to the bathroom, or whatever you got to do in the middle of the night, or you're just churning positions in your bed and you start, breaking through those zones of, frequency where you were. When you're in that place, don't just get up and transition. I actually learned
mm,
to just stay there and just observe what did I just experience, and then I'm watching myself. Oftentimes you can replay that dream and you go, oh, I love that dream. I want to go back in, but you realize that, oh, wait a minute, that dream is just a metaphor of what I'm experiencing in my life. And if you follow the teachings of Thoth and some of the esoteric teachings of the old wisdom of the ages, it's as above, so below, as within, so without. So if you look at it from that lens, what you're experiencing is another metaphor playing out in image form in your consciousness. And I experienced that, and I start asking that question: what exactly did I just experience? Is that
Mm.
really is that really me? Did I just
Yeah. So,
experience me?
so what I'm hearing is you're very cognizant. And that's a way that you use the tool of your mind and to kind of analyze or to pay attention and to observe to really support you to even retain the memory or to replay the memory or the
Yes,
dream. Well,
it's
that's what's
important.
interesting is because when I have dreams that are very similar, the distinction I'm hearing between my experience and your experience, so I want to acknowledge those vast experiences that are possible out there in the quantum field. But I feel things. I'm a very embodied person. I'm a
Mhm,
very somatic person.
mhm.
And so I will feel the emotions, but I'll feel the sensations. And then I'll observe my thinking when I'm in there. And when I observe my thinking, I'm like, why am I thinking that? And
Yep.
then I may shift it. But I'm
Yes.
still I'm the actor, but then I'm questioning the actor. So I'm kind of observing the actor. And then I can shift in the dream, which is when I was younger, I didn't do that.
Uh,
When I was a little girl, my nightmare dream was a big gumball is going to come get me, and I can't hardly get away, and it's just going to get me. And that was a recurring dream when I got sick, which was interesting. I could go
yeah.
back and look at that now. But so there are distinctions that happen, and that's one of the
Yeah.
reasons our conversation is so fascinating.
So I'd like to just be really clear. I don't analyze my dream. The
Okay.
minute you go into analysis, you've raised your consciousness to a high level in the vibration, and now you're in the
You're
beta
speaking in your dream.
in your dream.
Okay.
When you said you observe,
Hmm.
I participate. I'm still in participation mode, but I'm not in
Oh,
analytical mode.
so
Very
am I.
important distinction.
Yeah.
And so when you're in analytical mode, it's important for people to realize that don't just wake up and go, what did that dream really mean? Now you're too high up in your consciousness. You can't go back and replay and re-engage in that dream. So you got to stay in
Mm.
that middle state. So which means you don't fully wake up. And I got a
Mm.
technique
Yeah.
I want to share with your audience, if it's okay with you guys, about the what works for me, that'll
Yeah,
help people to do that.
that'd be
So
great.
to keep yourself in that state, the most common thing is we wake up or we'll open our eyes and we'll move around or we'll go to the bathroom and we'll come back and we want to go back and dream, and then that dream's poof gone. You don't have access to that. Why does that happen? As my analytical brain goes, why? How does the dream operate? What are the mechanisms? And maybe I just created this idea that works for me. It's worth for people to try it for themselves, because what worked for me is I look at my eyes and my eyeballs, the physiology of the eyeballs, and the connections between the eyeballs and the brain. Is there's definitely a light comes in from the eyes and it goes into your brain, it gets processed, it gets inverted, and all the mechanisms that go on, but the information that gets processed through your eyeballs aren't passive. I believe that to be true for me.
Mm.
Try it yourself. If you understand that the data that's coming in from the light waves is actually
Mhm.
going into your brain, but your brain it has its own storage, but there is some storage capacity that your eyeballs have access to. So then maybe there's a quadrant in the area. I think your sight is back here. Um, there's a piece of that storage structure. I'm a computer science guy, so I'll play this in computer science terms. There's memory that is only used to process the image and then passed on to the brain. So
Yeah.
it's volatile memory. It's short term. It's whatever. So when you close your eyes, you see images and they disappear because the light waves have now gone. You see shadows of images and they go away. I started to think about that in more science, more specifically for my dreams. So when I open my eyes, light comes in, and that area of the brain that the brain was using during dream time gets overwritten by the light waves.
Mhm.
So you basically instantly wipe that storage, and that image in the brain, and all that storage that the brain is using is now used up by the light coming in. So you wipe your dreams. Okay, that's the mechanism I have sort of worked out with how I
Oh,
process it. Maybe your brain is wired differently, but what you might try this is don't open your eyes. If you got to go to the bathroom, find the walls
Feel
and
your
Feel your
way.
way.
feel your way, find the walls, go do your thing, come back and climb in bed and keep yourself, don't analyze, just stay in that vibrational state. And as you're going to do your business or rolling in bed and starting to feel like, you got a cramp, you want to wake up and rub your legs, whatever, stay in that state. That vibrational state is where you can now go back in with intention and replay your dream, as you mentioned at the opening, is that I become the director in my dream. So instead
Mhm.
of observing and participating and experiencing the pain, the stress, and all that, I decouple from that and I become an observer. And as I become an observer, I look at the dream from a new lens and I go, hey, cut. That one goes to the bin. Let's try another run. And I'll do another run and another run. And I will play those runs in my dream
Mm,
even though the dream is similar or whatever, but the outcomes might be different because your consciousness that I'm using with my current vibrational conscience and intent that I apply to my dream state. So my dream is actually bringing old patterns back into my mind and processing things I've done. Maybe I acted inappropriately with my children. Maybe I acted inappropriately with my spouse. Maybe I acted like a jerk at work, and those are playing back. And I can now replay those and go, "That's not me. Why did I
Mhm.
experience? Why did I
Mhm.
experience that? Can I redo that? Maybe this is a karmic memory that comes from a prior, lineage that comes forward, and you're just playing out that lineage, and that's karma. You
Yeah.
did something
So
really bad."
yeah, Tim, I love what you explained to us about the eyes and the light. That really gave me a really great picture of how I could feel myself or think about myself doing that to try to get in that state that you were talking about. And what it brought forward for me was kind of you're interrupting our normal default to always be, going back to what we know, and our brain has got at the storage there, and cull away any kind of new fascinating insights and wonderings and curiosity. And so as we were speaking, it kind of thought, oh wow, it's a way to bring choice in.
mm,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
We always have choice. And this is my personal wake knowledge. This life is all about the choices we make to create the journey and the path and the experiences we have. And dreams are just reminding you that. And
Mm,
they may get stuck in a choice you made before, but your consciousness has shifted and it pulls you back into the old you. You want to focus on the new you, and this is my experiences. How do you hold that vibration? Because you can't, it's very difficult to do that when you're in your awake state. You can read books or whatever, but the
Yeah.
dream is so powerful. It's literally like the movie Inception. If you
mhm.
remember the movie Inception, where you go into a dream state and you go to sleep, and then in that dream state you're dreaming that you're dreaming, and then you go
Yeah.
another level deep. So I, as a computer science guy, I used to work for IBM in 30 years ago, and I used to write operating systems that were virtual reality. 30 plus years ago, 38 years ago actually.
Mm,
And I learned the metaphor of how do you test a computer program. Well, you don't have the hardware to test that level, so you create a virtual reality around it and you test the parameters of the virtual reality,
Right,
right?
right. Right.
So you
Yeah.
write a program and it sits inside a program. Well, when you get inside two levels deep, that's the mind can kind of comprehend. When you get three levels deep, like Inception, the movie, now you realize you jump out of one dream, you go to the next one, now you play another one. So all of these are dreams in some
mm,
reality,
Yeah.
allowing you to test those parameters. And
mm,
as you
mm.
test those
Oh, cool.
parameters, you can play with the parameters. All
That's
I
so true.
do is play with the parameters in my dream.
I love that you do that. And that really reminds me of there's something that I do with clients. And of course, just kind of shifting this towards how we can use this as medicine. There's a subtle shift, and I'll ask you to talk to this a little bit too, but about from the dream state when you're in bed sleeping, but then also daydreams. So there's kind of a segue that I do with clients, and I call it could be a pre-rehearsal or a post-rehearsal. So there's an experience that they've had in relationship with someone else or with themselves, and that's really bothered them. So we can
Hmm.
slow time down. That's how I call it. I do a time travel with them And we slow it down, and usually I have them close their eyes, which I agree, there's such a different state you go into when you close your eyes and your body feels safe. That neuroception of safety is there. And then we revisit something that has happened, rewind it internally, the moment right before the activation, and then we can actually take time to do exactly what you're talking about, only we're doing it in daytime
Hmm.
because we've developed that relationship of trust that that's possible. And it's really what it's not a way to deny what's happened or the possibilities of what might happen if you do a future one, but it's a way to give the nervous system and the soul a new possibility. It starts to lay down those new neural pathways. So I really love how you said that. And I'd like to hear from you. How do you experience or how do you know when your dream has shifted into a more aligned outcome that you are when you're doing those hopping into the different ones?
Sometimes it's in the dream. I just feel the alignment to my consciousness that
Mm,
this
okay.
feels right.
Okay.
Sometimes it's post dream, and even when I wake up from those dreams where I've rewritten my, let's just say, an outcome of my dream multiple times,
Hmm.
and I've done it like 8, 9 times. I'll go through. I just don't like the outcome. You try and run it again, you don't like the outcome. When you feel that represents your current consciousness,
Hmm.
that means you're bringing your old timelines forward to your current consciousness. So you know it's another way of, some people call that detaching from the old,
Hmm.
right? Some people call that karmic memory, and
Hmm.
some people call that, karmic rewrites. I use this when I become aware of some karma that, maybe I have an awareness through dream time that I did something bad, or I do an energy reading with the, psychic or whatever, and they go, hey, you were a bad guy in this lifetime, and I'll go back, well, no, that's not me, I would never do that. Well, yeah, you did it. Now how do you get rid of this? And just bringing this back in some sort of a framework, and I'm not a religious man, I'm a spiritual man. But in the religious construct, there's many religions have this whole concept of, rewriting karma. And
Yeah.
how do you rewrite karma? How do you rewrite the old, pardon my French, the old crap that we have absorbed and we are keep replaying and we get held back? There's a generational message in Bibles and Quran and other things about how to get rid of it. It's sins of the fathers, the seven
Yeah.
generations. I have found that in one sleep time, I can rewrite that karmic pattern.
Yeah. Well, what's I'm really excited in hearing you talk like in this way and what you explained earlier because it really is giving me such a sense of a permission that we normally don't hear. And instead of giving your authority away to the outside interpretation or what you've been programmed to believe, you are helping yourself to build trust of your own inner knowing
Yes.
and actually helps you align with your own sovereignty. Would you say that would
You're absolutely correct. Just remember, when you're an actor in your dream, you are following other directions. The question is, where do those directions come from?
yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And was it your consciousness that's stuck in a pattern, and are
Hmm.
those patterns breakable? And you are now, as a director, have a new authority, which is just what you said. You have your sovereign authority to own it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
When you own
So,
it and you direct it, you are the creator of your reality. That's the point. Exactly what you said, Gloria
uh,
and Gail.
Gail.
Sorry,
That's
Gail.
a
yeah, we answer to each other's names.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
okay. So, Tim, I'd love to get you to also speak to how do you work with the symbolism in your own dreams? How understanding the symbols, do you recognize them right away, or do they tend to unfold over time or somewhere on
It's
that
often
spectrum?
over time. It's often over time. It's when you can create the space where you remember your dream. I didn't say this, but it's really important to understand this. Before I wake up and I
Mm,
fully can bring myself out of that dream state, I make a conscious message to my mind to say, okay, I'm going to remember this dream, and it's more
I was wondering
specific.
about that.
It's very much more specific. I actually think of it like my phone. or my
Hmm.
computer hard drive. I'm going to turn my computer on or off in this case. I'm going to turn my computer. I'm going to turn the dream off. But before I turn the dream off, I want to copy everything that's in memory onto my hard drive,
Yeah.
right? So I
Yes.
make a conscious idea in my brain that I'm now moving all the residual memories I currently have from one part of my brain into permanent storage in my brain. I make that a conscious effort
Mm-hmm.
before I wake up. And I'm still in that lucid state, right? And I
Hmm.
can say, okay, now I'm starting to come higher up in my, so I'm starting to understand the reality of my physical world and all that kind of stuff. And I go, okay, I'm going to move this stuff. And I sit there, wait for it. And I'm going to give it time because it's not an instant flash. It's not an intention. It's you set the idea and you wait for the process to finish because there's data that's got to move and there's bandwidth and there's latency, right? So when you move the data from one to storage hard drive to another, it takes a little time and you sit there waiting for it and you wait for it and it takes maybe a minute or less.
Yeah.
And then once it's done, okay, now I'm going to wake up. Now, once that's done and now I'm awake, I'll access that data to verify the data was actually copied correctly.
What do you
Right?
mean by
So
verify? What do you mean by
I
verify?
replay my knowledge of the dream now from a different part of my brain. So I
But are you
remember my
awake then?
dream. I'm
You're
now awake. And now I'm awake. Go, oh, do I remember my dream? Oh, yeah, I remember that vividly. Oh, yeah, I remember that detail.
So, do
Some
you
things go
journal it
away.
then?
Sorry?
Do you journal it, or do you have
I
another
used
way
to.
of?
Honestly, I used to. I got to the place where I got lazy, and yes, um, I had such vivid dreams. It's like I have a binders and binders of this stuff. And what am I going to do with this? To me, I'm not writing a play or a movie. I'm rewriting my consciousness, and it's in the moment. I'm done. I'm move on.
Mm, mm. So if sometimes I can still remember my nightmare dreams from being a child, and so I was wondering, do you do anything different if the dream has a really strong emotional charge, or have you just been able through your practicing and being aware of this and making your choices,
Absolutely. And I'm
be able to see?
smiling. I'm smiling deeper because you just reminded me of a common dream. So I'm gonna go a little deeper on the psychology and the metaphysics side of this for a second, if I can. Okay, your dreams aren't just plays. They are another level of reality that you're interacting with. And I say this because a lot of times we'll have dreams. For example, and I'll say this as a male, women have these dreams as well. But oftentimes I'll have a dream where it's a sexy dream with women enticing me to be in places and whatever. Then when I was 17, that was kind of fun. When I became a more conscious male, aware with the relationship with a partner and all that kind of stuff, I became a little bit more suspicious to why am I having these dreams? Is it because I'm unhappy in some aspect of my life with my relationship, and that may play out in that way. And there was stages in my life where that was the case, and my consciousness was playing. But there's another level. The other level is what shows up in your dream time can be a place of, let's just say, negative energies playing in your dream to manipulate your outcomes. And we live in the
Yes.
matrix, so there are
Mm.
constructs that play in all levels, and dream is no exception.
I agree. For me, the dreams, they often feel like they're messages from the soul, not always literal messages, but invitations, where sometimes a dream will show me where I'm carrying something. They can, as you were saying, you were calling it karma. It can actually show me what I'm longing for, what a part of me is asking to come home. There's many different levels to those types of things, and I want to hold this with a lot of care for our listeners. And so it's important that we have a container that
Yes,
retains that
yes.
sacred sovereign space where everyone's at choice.
If I could just describe that, the awareness that comes with understanding, or through experience, you'll come to the conclusion that what you dreamt is not really your consciousness. It is an attack. So things will play in your dream to try to put you off center. in your
Okay.
consciousness, in your path. And
So,
and those pieces are where I'm talking about is how to recognize that. And in some cases, for me in the past, they were always let's just say energies manifesting as a even a friendly, like my wife. My wife would be in a dream, but she's behaving differently than she does. Why is that? And then you
hmm
start asking that question:
yeah.
is that really her? But then I will set my intention to have remove the veil of what that dream
Okay.
represents and see the
So
truth
you
of
have
it.
more
And
clarity.
it's actually a psychic attack.
Okay, and so what I want to also do here in the container of our conversation for the purpose of this conversation is I want to offer our listeners there's some really great tools that you can explore. I really love Donna Eden's energy medicine, and her husband does energy psychology, and they have a lot of tools that can help people that are just beginning to understand any kind of energy work because Tim, the stuff you're talking about is not a beginner conversation. And so there's a
Hmm.
thing called the zip up. There's ways that you can actually set the container of your energetic space where you say no, and you can just let that go.
Yes,
And
yes.
because you are that sovereign being, we
Hmm.
don't need to go into the trepidation of fear and, oh my God, what is this? Because that wasn't the purpose of the
Yes,
conversation here.
absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I don't want to scare anybody because the whole idea that you could be attacked in your dream, that's what that's what the gumball going to go swallow you up is another
Right.
metaphor, right? It's
Yeah.
just
Right.
the scary dreams we have, or whatever those scary things are. In my
Yeah.
case, they were attempts to destabilize my relationship with my wife, right?
Yeah. So they can come to give us imagery. You were talking about metaphors. I see dreams as constellations all the time. Gail and I are both constellation facilitators in many different ways, um, and so it's because the soul actually speaks in image, sensation, symbol, and
Yes,
feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
so many times it can be you're having the dream because it's going to bring something from the past forward for
yes,
healing.
yes.
Have you had an experience like that?
That I see the dream state is exactly that. That is the main purpose of the dreams.
Mm,
It's more than just sometimes you see dreams as a possible future outcome. To me, I
mm,
think that's maybe your consciousness accessing a field that allows you to see a possible outcome. That doesn't mean
mhm.
that that's the future reality. I don't believe that. I don't think that anybody has such a direct lens that tells you this is exactly what your future is going to hold. Right? We have choices, and that can shift the minute you wake up. Right? But
Oh, yeah.
that just gives you an opportunity. But it also, looking backwards, gives you some reflective time. And for me,
Yeah.
I think the dream state allows you to process the complexities of our lives, and they show it not as the exact scenario in your life. They show it as metaphors. You have
Yeah.
Yeah.
to be the one to interpret that metaphor and go,
Yeah.
hey, wait a minute. That dream sounds just like this thing over here that's going on, and that's the as above, so below, as within, so without. So recognizing
Mhm.
what you're dreaming is actually a reflection of your reality, which is the if you imagine the dream as a dimensional state, and your
Mhm.
reality is another state above. So as
Yeah.
above, so below is going on in your dream time, right? So your consciousness is saying, "Hey, have you really? Is that what's really going on here, or is
Yeah,
what's deeper?"
because I mean, what I'm getting from the conversation here, Tim, is that the thread comes back to self-sovereignty and self-responsibility. So if there's something unusual and strange going on, you get curious and you don't automatically go, "Oh my gosh, this is it." But
Yeah.
you come that like what I'm really hearing your message is like a really strong message. Come back to you, your empowerment, your place of choice, and you know, get rid of the autopilot of what we've been programmed or what others might be thinking, and really come back to yourself. And the dreams are like little drops of messages of
Yes.
being able to do that and do the healing as you're talking about. And it sounds like what was coming to me is that, oh, things will start to come as we are capable of.
Yes. And I personally think that the your consciousness is there to move you and nudge you along instead of just taking the big sledgehammer and hitting you against the head.
Mm.
So
Thankfully.
because it's there to protect you, and it's there to open the door, and it's there for you to have the sovereign choice to go there, and that's exactly what you're saying on this one, Gail. My personal journey has been one of an inner, in the last 10 years, 13 plus years, has been more inner awareness, because this is where you can't change the outside world. You can only change the world, how you either see the world or how you interact with the world. So when you take that ownership and you really own it, like you're, pardon my French, a badass, and you can really be that person who can own your life and say,
Mhm.
this is not happening to me, this is happening for me.
Mhm.
And the dream is there for you. The dream is
Yeah,
there for you to interpret and
Yeah.
understand what is your consciousness grabbing onto this time.
Did you say
yeah,
understand?
I
he
did
did. I
say
heard, yeah,
understand.
Understand. Love that. Okay, I
yeah.
love that. Yeah.
That's really so important. In the Healing You method, we come back to that self-responsibility, and not as blame but as empowerment, as you're speaking. And it's the difference between actually the perspective of, oh, this is my fault, to, oh, this is my field of choice. This is where I
Absolutely.
can become, I can grow my consciousness. And this is where I can actually experiment with responding differently, which beautifully points back to what you did when you were jumping from dream to, replaying your dream. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's really key.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's a
so,
practice
oh,
that needs it's a muscle memory. So
Oh,
you
yeah.
you need to really
yeah.
practice this. You're not going to nail this in one sitting. It took me a little
Yeah.
bit to go through this process. I think you asked an earlier question, when did I first become aware? Well, actually I had some
Mm.
dreams in which I started to question, why did I dream that? And that was a start of it. Just be curious. Why did I dream that?
That could be that you would say, like, for if listeners wanted to
Mm.
start being more curious, that would be a good first question to start with.
Absolutely.
Why did I
What does
dream
this
that?
mean? What does this mean, and why did I dream it? Now, I used to journal as well, and I used to write my dreams, and I'm sure if I actually had journaled over the last 40 years or 30 years or even 20 years when our dreams were more intense, I'm sure I can connect the dots and figure out a pattern. Um, and I know I've read and learned myself that that's a really good thing to do. Like I said, I got lazy, and I was not writing a book I was not dreaming so I could write a book and put something out. I was dreaming to change my consciousness, and those are in the moment. So,
Mhm.
and I do
Yeah.
understand the moments don't always connect, and it would be a really good idea to connect the moments, but just be aware, journal, see the pattern, because sometimes you don't get it in one dream.
Mhm.
Right. That's so true. When we can begin to recognize, so recognition is key
Hmm.
in my experience. When I can start to actually recognize, so I can recognize what the symbol represents. I can recognize what the environment, the ecosystem is represent. There's so many parts to an
Right,
ecosystem.
right,
And each one of those aspects has some um, message for us
sure,
when we are able to recognize it.
Yeah.
And if we can't, like a kindergartner is not going to recognize it.
right, right.
So again, when you talked about just growth and development, there's many different stages of the growth and development. But
Yeah,
even asking ourselves, what part of me was present? Was it my little girl, or was it my
Yeah.
adolescent girl, or was it my middle-aged guy? Who was it? Or was I somebody completely different? You know, um, so there's different parts. I know in the work I do, people can learn to recognize their different parts
hmm,
as well as their different patterns that run those parts or activate those parts.
sure.
Yeah.
And really recognizing, what is the choice that's being shown to me? Is there a choice here?
Mhm.
And I have to admit, it's easy to wake up and let it all go away and just rinse and
Right. It is.
repeat and do it again. And you see another dream, and the dream is going to try and come back and remind you. And then it's easier to live in the trap of what the life that we are in, and we sometimes aren't happy
Mm,
with those
Mm.
those aspects of our life. And I encourage your listeners to really open the door to ask that
mhm.
curiosity question: what is it
Yeah.
teaching me? What is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah. So you're having it more as a living conversation rather than just shutting the book. It's a
absolutely. You
living
can shut the book
conversation.
and you're going to rinse and repeat till the cows come home. And you're going to wake up when you're 60, 70, 80, 90, going, what the hell was this all about?
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, yeah. So, I don't know, Tim, this might be a question that you would say all of it or something, but I was just curious with your journey, I mean, I really hearing how you have to commit to it. is what I'm hearing you just say right now. But is there one area that you would say, oh, it taught like it was instrumental for me learning about me was, or was it in the area of compassion or responsibility or love? Is there
The catch-all answer is all of it, but I want to be more specific for me.
yeah,
I
okay, wonderful.
absolutely have had some key dreams that have made me hyper aware that I'm the director,
Mm,
and it reinforced my conscious state, my awake state, to live life as the director in my life, not as a victim.
Mhm.
oh, that's a key one. That's a
Okay.
really, really key. Yeah.
And so many people think life happens to them when in reality life happens for them.
Mhm.
Mm,
And those are opportunities of awareness and choice, and that brings you to a scary ground of actually looking inwards to say, where did that come from? Is that my stuff? Did I
Mhm.
create that consciousness, or is it a another consciousness that is being influenced on me that is not mine? Or is it really an old story that needs to just go and remove those belief systems in my life, and that changes my current conscious awake pattern? Because belief systems are going to create your glass ceilings.
That's true.
Okay.
So I
yeah.
love how your relationship with your dreams is actually, you're sharing how it's changing your waking life. And
Absolutely.
I want to acknowledge how much appreciation I have that you're constantly learning. You're like this big sponge in the universe, but you don't just collect information. You're applying what you're learning. You're testing it, like you talked about with your previous work. You test it in your life. You have these different dimensions and you're testing each one of them and you reflect on them and you're allowing yourself, you're giving yourself permission to evolve, to
Yes.
expand, as you say.
Yes. Yes. I wanted to also seed your audience as a methodology before you go to bed.
Mm,
Turn the television off long enough where now you're with your own mind, and then you set the intention, and you can verbalize it if you want, what you want to dream. It will influence where that mind is going to take you in your dream time.
Yeah.
Okay. But I would also caution you that if you just watched a scary movie and you went into your dream time,
yeah.
you're going to get some of that.
That's right. Like I don't watch scary movies.
Well,
Yeah.
my wife and
Yeah.
I completely don't watch anything that is, above PG-13 anymore. As a matter of fact,
Yeah.
and here's the thing. I want to people need to understand your brain is processing what you just put into it.
Hmm.
And if
Mm,
you, I mean, there's a lot of, let's just say, programming and also scary things that come on the television, or, what you read or whatever. So it's really, really important to have a clear palette going
yeah.
into your dreams. So you're working on what you intend to, not what the world wants you to do. Okay.
Right.
And
Gosh,
and
that speaks so much to, the world right now.
we need, and honestly, I'll tell you a little personal thing. My wife and I, in the last 6 months, us have become so sick and tired. And we don't watch TV hardly. As a matter of fact, even the TV that we do watch, every once in a while, you want to watch an entertainment. It's either romantic love story, which of course influenced by my wife, but I'm also romantic, so I'm good with that. But the other thing was, oh, my thumb came up. The other thing is, I got to take my thumb off here. Okay, so the other thing is the we stopped watching anything that was made after the late 70s in the 19 early 80s.
Mm,
Okay, so we'll watch Drew Carey show, we watch Bewitched, we watch my I Dream a Genie, or I'll watch, if I want to watch like a detective story, I'll watch, Rockford Files from the 1970s. The point is this: it's simpler times.
yeah.
The imagery, the graphically, the control, and the mind control through television is much simpler. So we put that in our brain when we do watch TV.
Mm,
Completely don't watch scary movies. Don't watch anything rated R and above, because it's just become absolute programming galore for us.
Hmm.
And we want to control what goes in our mind. And so, I just offer the challenge to your audience to try to just go to an older time, a
yeah.
younger period in your life when life was simpler, and you need
Mhm.
that to keep your coherence in your body, in your nervous system, to feel safe. There, there's too much out there that is going to put you, in the fear and flight and fight or flight mode, and
Yeah.
that's what's going to create those glass ceilings of your belief systems and your consciousness and how you will react in the morning. When your dream can actually clean that up.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. Choices about what we're putting in our brain, because we do have that comes back to that sovereignty again that you were talking about, and then be aware of your intention.
Mm-hmm.
Like what are you intending as you're going into sleep for that last hour, the last couple of hours before you go?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think we'll have this been fascinating, but this conversation, and you've really given us some clear steps and I understanding about your dream process. And as we're beginning to bring this conversation towards completion, I'm sitting with the idea that dreams can reveal where healing is already trying to happen.
yes,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
maybe that's one of the gifts of dream work, you know. We
Yeah.
realize that we're not only healing during, quote, therapy sessions, retreats, or conversations or consciousness practices, but something deeper in us is always moving toward that wholeness, towards expansion. And dreams, they can show us the next layer. They can show us what we haven't wanted to feel. They might show us the choice we didn't even know we had, or a part of ourselves that is ready to come home. So, if there's one thing, Tim, that you would love listeners to take away from this conversation, what would it be?
Just be empowered to be the director of your life, and it's more than the dreams.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty powerful. To
Yeah.
step into being the director of our own lives. That's wonderful. Yes, thank
Yeah.
you.
That's a
Thank you.
gentle place to begin, too. I like that. You know,
Yeah.
it's very empowering and brings in curiosity and respect and trust that our inner world is, as you said, it's not against us, it is
Yeah.
for us and is
Mhm.
communicating with us.
Yeah, I'd like to maybe pose an idea to your audience. Is more than just what I think. I would like to propose the idea that, and it's an example of how I used to treat my children. I've got two boys. They're now 37 and 34, and when they were growing up, I used to tell them that they should find their passion, and then live their passions.
Mm.
Okay. And I thought it was the best advice I was giving them as I was in my 20s and 30s, that find your passion and live your passion. When you're 17, you have no idea what your passions are.
Mhm.
You have no idea what motivates you. You haven't explored enough in life. And the same thing happens when you get older. You just don't realize it, right? You think that you got to be this something out there to then achieve this thing in here. I've pivoted on that, and I've learned as I got older and maybe a little bit more gray in the chin, that the better message is to be passionate in everything you do,
Mm,
because no matter what you do, you will be in your passion, and that brings joy
mm,
and brings excitement and brings alignment to your soul journey that brings you to where your consciousness wants to take you, instead of
Wow.
looking for an outer goal and achievement to then fill that inner life. And that to
I
Yeah.
me
love
is your
that.
message to to your
Oh.
family.
That's
Oh, that
beautiful,
sounds
Tim.
gorgeous. That's just beautiful to do that, flip
Mhm.
that way, Tim. Thank you. And thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing your experiences and your wisdom and your willingness to explore these deeper questions and bigger life with us.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. And excuse me, it has been such a rich conversation.
I
And
love it.
thank you. Yeah, thank you to our listeners for joining us for this episode of the Healing You Method podcast. We really hope this conversation invites you to listen more deeply to your dreams, to your body, to your intuition, and the quiet wisdom of your soul. And you don't have to force meaning. You don't have to figure everything out right away. And sometimes the very most healing thing we can do is simply pause and ask, what is this showing me? What
Mhm.
is life inviting me to notice?
Yeah. And in our next episode, Gloria and I will be having a recap conversation reflecting on our last three episodes. We'll be looking back at episode 344, with our guest conversation with Robert Nadoping, exploring leadership, growth, and moving from bottleneck to breakthrough. We'll also reflect on episode 345, Sacred Presence, Awakening Your Inner Light Through Love, Nature, and Embodiment, with Thierry Lum. And then we'll also include today's conversation with Tim Fraser, this episode 346, When Dreams Become Medicine, Soul Messages, Symbolism, and Sovereign Choice. So thank you
Yeah.
so much, Tim.
Yeah, we'll be
My
weaving
pleasure.
together the themes of presence, purpose, dreams, embodiment, sovereignty, and many ways healing invites us into a deeper relationship with ourselves and with life. So until next time, may you listen gently to what is rising within you, honor the wisdom of your own soul, and remember all healing is relational. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us, and we will see you next time.
My pleasure, ladies. Till next time.